Hi, I'm Brad with Gigabyte Grove, and on today's video, we're going to do an overview and set up the RLC-510 Alpha from Reolink. We're going to do an unboxing, show you guys kind of some of the features, the benefits of the actual unit, and then go through an actual setup of the unit itself. So stick around, it's going to be a great video.
Gigabyte Grove, where the future stands. Gigabyte Grove, where the data flows. Living off the grid, but the Wi-Fi's closed. Sustainable dreams in a connected scene. Innovation blooms in the southern breeze.
One of the differences that comes up quite often is the difference between wireless and wired cameras. And when you're using services like Blink or Ring, usually these type of products have subscriptions, whereas owning a system like a Reolink system or a Reolink NVR or some of the other different wired versus wireless cameras they have, those don't actually have subscriptions. That's why it is generally better to go ahead and get yourself an actual camera. So now that that's out of the way, let's actually look at what comes in the box. So we're going to switch over to our top-down camera so you guys can kind of see. We'll do a full unboxing of the actual unit, show you it, kind of plug it in, go over its features and all that. We'll look at the box really quick. You know, this got a little dirty in shipping, which is fine. But on the side, it actually does tell you about the Reolink app. So the Reolink app is actually a really, really feature-rich app that you can pair with these cameras. I honestly, I've been installing cameras for over a decade at this point, and I've not found an app that is more intuitive than the Reolink app. You can get it on iOS and on Android, and it actually is integratable into Home Assistant pretty natively. They have a integration for Home Assistant. So if you don't know what Home Assistant is basically a home automation software. We'll do a video on Home Assistant in a future video, but right now we're just going to talk about the getting cameras. So you can actually you can do a lot with these cameras. So one of the other things that I wanted to make sure that got covered, and it says it on the left, was this the left side or the right side? Yeah, is, I'm not going to go over every little item in here, but it actually has a smart alarm. So these feature smart person and vehicle detection alerts that are powered by AI that actually runs on the camera itself. And it can alert you either via the Reolink mobile app or through like a Home Assistant integration. It's got a 5 megapixel resolution with a max of 2560 over 1920 pixels. So that is 2K. And it does support PoE and 12-volt Ethernet barrel jack style connections. So let's go ahead and open this up. We've got some literature, some documentation. I'm not actually going to open that, but there's a couple of stickers, some QR stuff, limited manual safety information, stuff like that. This is a waterproofing kit. Most cameras come with this nowadays. I'll show you how to use this in a minute, but let's actually take a look at the camera itself. There would be an Ethernet cable here. I actually removed it because I needed it for something else. You have the hardware to actually mount it. It's simple, three screws, that's it. And then you have the actual camera itself. So the actual camera itself, this is a bullet style camera from Reolink. And by default, this camera you can mount it either this way, where you have it ceiling mounted or wall mounted, or you can actually turn it around and mount it this way or that way. And you can do flush mount even with the cable. So that's an important distinction, is all these Reolink cameras, or most cameras now, have these little divots in them that you can actually do wire or run the wire through that. I don't recommend doing that for the sole purpose that if you're installing a camera, you want this part right here to be against the wall and this to go through the wall. And the reason is you don't want, especially if you have like a high value thing that you're protecting, you don't want any potential evil doer or whatever you want to call it. You don't want anyone to potentially get to this cable and cut it. That basically disarms your camera. So let's take a look more at the camera itself. Now, this camera supports on the back, I'm going to move this out of the way here. It has a SD card spot. Got stuck on the table here. Has an actual SD card spot here where you can record directly on the camera itself. Supports up to a 256 gigabyte SD card for on-device recording. So that's accessible via the mobile app. If you go to the Reolink mobile app, and you can record this either with the Reolink NVR and on the cameras themselves, or just on the cameras themselves, depending on how many you put out in deployment. If you have more than 3 cameras, just get an NVR. It's just easier. One of the other things that I wanted to point out, and a lot of cameras have this nowadays, but some of them aren't the greatest at it, is that this actually has full night vision via infrared, and the infrared range is up to about 100 feet. So it depends on conditions. If you have ever watched our EarthCam at gigabytegrove.com, or you've gone out to EarthCam and actually searched it, you will notice that on it, on the building in the back, there is a white light that recently appeared. Well, that's actually a camera. It's one of these cameras that actually faces back for our security system and shows us the front half of the property. So that is what that light is, and it's actually quite powerful, a lot more powerful than you think it would be, because this actually creates a reflection on the EarthCam that is quite interesting, actually. So let's take a look at the bottom part here, because you're probably wondering what this mess of spaghetti is here. So this is your actual Ethernet right here. This supports PoE, and we'll worry about that in a minute here. But basically, you can power the entire camera just from plugging this in with PoE compatible hardware. Well, what are the other two things for? Well, the other two things, you have, I think this is the barrel jack. Nope, that's your reset switch. So you're going to want to reset, if you ever need to reset the hardware, this is what you're going to want to do. It's just a momentary contact switch. So it's nothing super crazy. And then this is your actual DC barrel jack right here. These are actually, these are weatherproof, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. But I want to talk about some other stuff that's actually on this device. I'm looking to see if you can actually see it, and I don't. Oh, it's right here. Sorry, my bad. So if you look at this little hole right here, that's actually your microphone. So this actually supports full audio recording, full audio streaming straight from this device. Now, at the time that you see this, I'm going to change this password. So these identifying information that's on the bottom doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to you. Doesn't matter what the device ID is. It's not going to be exposed to the internet. So no one will be able to reach this camera anyway. So the serial number and all that stuff doesn't really matter. I'm going to blur it out for security anyway, but you guys won't be able to do anything with that information. So one of the other things that I had alluded to is that these actually work really well. I'm going to set this down here. Let's come back full screen to me here. And these work really well for smart home automation. So things like Google Home, Amazon Alexa, Home Assistant, or full management via the Reolink app, which I'll put some screenshots of that up on the screen so you guys can kind of see a little bit about that, or what it looks like. And the Reolink NVR system, which is a network video recorder. Now, as I had said, these devices are also IP67 certified waterproof. So these, I'll give you a perfect example of how well these things actually work. About 7 years ago, I was tasked with putting a construction camera up for one of the fire stations that I worked at. And it was only supposed to be a temporary situation, maybe 6 months, 8 months at the most. That camera is still up there. The actual device that it's, or the structure that it's mounted to, is literally a wooden pallet with a 2x4 coming off of it and one up to brace it. And that camera has been there for 7 years, like 7 years and 5 months, something like that. Long time. So it's been there for a long time, and the only thing that it has is this and a waterproofing here and a little bit of electrical tape here and there. But that's it. That's it. And it's a standard, regular, not weatherproof Ethernet cable too. So just keep that in mind. Make sure, if it's gonna be submerged, probably better idea to not put it there. But yeah, they're IP67 rated. They're basically waterproof. As long as they're not submerged in water, you're good. These are fully compatible with most NVR hardware. So you can go and buy off of Temu and AliExpress and Wish.com and Amazon. You can buy any of those network video recorders that are cheap, or like 30, 40, 50 bucks. You can buy those and they will actually work. These will actually work with that. They have native support for most common NVR hardware and software. They're fully supported by Blue Iris NVR, which we'll do a video on Blue Iris. I love that software. So we'll do a video on Blue Iris. They have a fully compatible web interface for device management, and we'll do 2 different types of setup. I'm going to actually set it up using the tablet that we've got here, and I'm going to actually set it up using the computer. So we'll be able to do that as well. This has something that most other cameras do not have, and that is 2 actual sub streams for high and low quality picture recording. So one of the things that I love about this is not only is it H.264 or an H.265 compatible, which is basically the newest, latest, and greatest video codec, but that has a high resolution and a low resolution. So what that basically means is on your network video recorder, to minimize resources. Let's say that you have 10 cameras. You have a big property. You have 10 cameras, and each of the cameras you want to do motion tracking on. You want to know the moment someone comes into view, the moment they leave view. Well, what you can actually do is you can set your motion detection to be on the low resolution, which low resolution is still not that low. It's like 1024 by 768, which is basically one of those old tube monitors from Windows 98, Windows XP era, which is still pretty detailed. And as soon as it sees motion over, a scope of whatever you set it to be, it'll switch to high resolution and capture that instead. So these have intelligent AI capture and motion detection on them. That's one of the reasons why I like Reolink so much, is because they've come quite a long way with on-device processing, whereas others rely on NVRs and things like that to actually take care of it. These support UPnP, Universal Plug and Play. So basically these just will automatically burrow their way out to interact with your NVR if it's remote, or they will connect with the Reolink app. These do not require a cloud account. These can be local. That was one of the points that I wanted to make with using a service like Blink or Ring, or even some like Hikvision or other types of products. They have the option for cloud hosting, and most of the time they don't give you the choice on whether or not that content gets uploaded. Now, I know there's going to be some, oh, well, I've had Blink for 5 years. And listen, the number of times that I've gone into a customer's house or place of business and they've had Ring or Blink cameras or sensors, that will always send information out to the cloud. Whether it's your personal information or footage it's recorded, it will always go somewhere that's not on premises. So if you truly want to be in control of your security for your building, your home, your business, all of that, the only true way to do it is to host it yourself with your own hardware, ensuring that you have cloud disabled. Reolink makes that very easy to do. They do not enforce cloud hosting as a default. You actually have to go and disable it per camera, or enable it per camera. Whereas with services like Blink or Ring, there is no way to disable it. It is by default. The other thing with that is the collection of your data and your use habits with it. And we covered this in our first video with the AdGuard, but them selling your information, most people don't want that. This also supports NTP, so network time protocol. So the network time protocol is basically your device goes out to the internet, gets the exact time, comes back, sets the time correctly on the device, and they're all synchronized together. I do recommend NTP if you have the option to do it, or if your devices support it. Maybe I'll do a video on NTP at some point, but just know that these are able to synchronize themselves with the internet clock, the absolute clock, the atomic clock, whatever you want to call it. They also support common video protocols, especially protocols nowadays like ONVIF, RMTP, RSTP, HTTP, and HTTPS video protocols. So they do support all of that. One of the other important things to note with these is you automatically get a limited 2-year warranty with these. And that limited warranty, it says limited, it's really not that limited. If the device itself fails after, I think it's 6 months or something like that, from an obvious manufacturer's defect, which I've had a few of them actually do, they sent me 2. For the one that I sent back, I got 2 for the inconvenience. These are so reliable, they actually don't break down as often as people like to think they do, or as, for being a Chinese brand, it's not really a Chinese brand, but being a Chinese brand, as people like to call it, the quality of these is surprisingly well. And it priced at only $50 on Amazon. And I'll post some affiliate links down in the description so that you guys can see kind of what I'm talking about. The big disclaimer on this is Reolink did send us a few of these to demo. I fell in love with them, so we kind of have them all over the place, but they're not seeing this video before it goes out. You guys are seeing it at the same time they are. My opinions are my own. I'm not being paid by Reolink to say any of this stuff. I did actually go out and buy this one here that we're talking about, that we're going to set up today. This is not one of the ones that they had sent me. So one of the cons, let's talk about the cons of these devices. So by default, these devices have auto reboot enabled by default. So every 7 days from when you first plugged it in, it will automatically reboot to refresh the OS, the underlying command system of it. If you don't know to turn it off, it can be upsetting to suddenly see that your camera has gone offline for no reason at an unexpected time, or you lose any footage while it's off. It's relatively easy to do if you go into either the Reolink app or the actual web interface. Under System, it's right there. It's the first option. Just take it off and it'll never come back on again. The other it's annoying for me as a techie, but it's for the lay average person, it's not going to affect you. The cameras don't automatically update their firmware unless you're using a Reolink NVR. So if you have a lot of them out in deployment, which we do, it can make them a pain to actually manage in a production environment. So it's not a deal breaker. The Reolink app, when you launch it and click on the camera, it will actually tell you, hey, I've got a software update for this camera. Press here to actually update it, and it'll do it. Home Assistant is really good about it as well. The app that's in Home Assistant keeps track of what versions your cameras are running and if they're out of date, and it tries to make sure that they're all synchronized to the latest update. So it's a fairly simple one-click update interface, but the fact that it doesn't do it automatically or have the option to do it automatically is something that I kind of wish was in there. Now, the other thing that most people, someone will go out and buy this camera expecting it to have this feature, and it may not. So this is a 5 megapixel camera, which means the viewing angle is quite a bit less than what you would expect it to be on something like a PTZ camera. So it has a narrow field of view, which is only about 80 degrees horizontal, and then about 42 degrees vertical. So it's not super, super wide angled. It is quite a bit narrowed. So if you're aiming this at a specific thing, you want to make sure that this is far enough back from that thing that you'll be able to get the entire thing in there. Otherwise, you'd want to go for something that is a wider angle or something that has a broader range. This specific camera, we'll talk about some of the other cameras that Reolink has, but this specific camera does not support Wi-Fi. It requires it to be wired. So you have to either do Ethernet or Ethernet in the DC jack, but you can't do Wi-Fi with these. So one of the other things that I want to make sure that I point out is with some of these cameras, not all of them, and I've not seen this with this, but some people have reported issues, that motion can blur on fast-moving objects. So keep in mind that if you use this in a high traffic area, depending on the speed of objects and its distance and how fast it can see them coming and so on. If you have this, for example, let's say you have this going down a hallway or a corridor in your business or whatever, if it sees the subject of what it's trying to record from far away, it has time to process and get that in there. But if you put it, this way in your hallway and you have people just walk past like this, it's not actually going to capture it that well. It's not made for that type of capture. It's made for long distance capturing. That's why you have 100 feet of IR. So the other thing that I will point out is that this device does not have two-way audio. There is no two-way audio like you would find on some other PoE cameras or on some of the PTZ cameras. This is record only. So if you need two-way audio, make sure that you are not that you're not buying this camera and expecting to be able to talk back to people. There are other cameras that actually exist that work fairly well. So one of them actually being the Reolink RLC-510A PTZ camera. I'm going to do a review on this here probably within the next couple of videos. This camera is actually quite unique because it is solely solar powered. So it has a battery built in and it uses solar and Wi-Fi. So this is a Wi-Fi camera. It uses solar and Wi-Fi to actually transmit back to the Reolink app. We'll talk about some of the things I don't like about this camera, but it's a battery powered camera. And one of the things that changed my expectations when it came to wired or wireless cameras, but that's in a future video. We'll talk about that. But wireless cameras, generally, I don't like them and won't recommend people install them because they have poor battery life. They are not reliable. The motion tracking with them is often very delayed. So just keep that in mind. What does Reolink offer other than cameras? Well, Reolink has quite a few security devices. So they have their PoE doorbell or wired doorbell units, wireless doorbell units. We have 2 of those here, and I absolutely love them. They're fantastic. And they have their Argus line of wireless and LTE cameras. So if, excuse me, if you got somewhere that you want to protect and there's no Wi-Fi, but you have cell service there, they actually make a model of this camera that you can put a 4G card in. You don't have to worry about using something like this, which is a bullet camera. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and get this factory reset. The Reolink bullet camera. I'm going to go ahead and get this factory reset. We're going to plug it in, and we are going to try to set it up through the Reolink app. So at this point, we're ready to add the camera to the Reolink app. Now we're going to do that setup first. We'll do the web browser setup in a little bit, but you want to make sure that you download the correct app for your system. So whether you're using Android or iOS, it will be available in your app store. I'll go ahead and put the icons on the screen so you guys can see what they look like. One of the biggest problems people have is downloading the wrong apps. So just make sure that you're using this icon right here. So first and foremost, we're going to switch over to the tablet so you can kind of see. Hopefully this is going to work because this is quite an old tablet. But you are going to launch your Reolink app. It'll ask you to agree to the terms of service, blah, 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 blah. And you're just going to hit in the upper right-hand corner, add device, the plus sign. So go ahead and hit that. And you want to scan this QR code that's down here on the bottom. So go ahead and scan that with your device's camera. I think the glare is what's getting me. So let me go ahead and relocate that real quick. There we go. And we're going to let it go ahead and connect. And it looks like it's actually doing fairly well. So it's initializing our device. So what it's going to ask you to do is it's going to ask you to set a username and password for your device. So I'm going to leave this as admin. I don't want to change it. And then I'm going to set up my super secret password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and verify that that's correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then confirm my password. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. It has to be 8 characters. That's one of the reasons why I like this, is you can't just set your password as password and expect it to be all right. It does enforce some password restrictions. Not a lot, but it does enforce some, because for security reasons, you never want to actually put the camera on an internet connected device, but you have the option to actually do it if you need to. Now, one of the other things that I will point out is down at the bottom, you will see where it says illegal login lockout. This basically means that after 3 attempts, or after, I think it's 5 attempts, your camera will be blocked for a few minutes, or locked up for a few minutes. That prevents people from spamming it and trying to brute force and get their way into it. So I'm going to leave that enabled. We're going to go ahead and hit next down at the bottom. And it's going to, oh, did I screw something up? Incorrect format. Oh, did I leave a space at the end of something? Because I've been known to do that before. Let's see. All right, let's, oh wait, I'm sorry. It has to have letters as well. I literally just finished saying that too. So let's do password 1, 2, and that will be our password for this. Password 1, 2, and see if it lets us do that, which it does. All right, so now I don't want to do that. We're going to go ahead and we are going to go ahead and we're going to name our device. So we're just going to leave this as RLC-510 Alpha. Once you go ahead and name that, you hit next, and it's going to finish initializing this. So I'm going to uncheck save the QR code for device album sharing. We don't need to worry about that. Just go ahead and hit finish. Now you can actually see the RLC-510 Alpha is on the app itself, or is on the app. If you actually hit the screen, you can see, hi there. It's a little upside down, but you can actually see me on the screen. Yes, the garage is quite a bit messy, but you can actually see that on there. You can go back. If you have an SD card, you can play back just by hitting the playback button. And there's other things that you can do here. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is you'll see on the screen that if you actually register, you will get 2 years and 6 months of a warranty. Make sure that you register every Reolink camera you get. because you will get that 2-year, 6-month warranty. That's one of the things that they offer, and that is an extended warranty. So it covers quite a bit more than you would expect it to do. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss because I've already registered all these cameras anyway. And they do have cloud cameras and IoT cameras. There's other things that you can actually register in here. Now, if you click on the cog, the little settings thing, you can see some of the features that you can do in here. These are all the same features that you can do in the web interface. Some of them are more in-depth on the mobile app. They're made for the mobile app, and some of them are made for the web interface. So some of them are display. So if you go into the display option, you can kind of customize whether you want it vertical, how you want the stream to be. So these are the resolutions. You can change the resolutions here on this, or you can set the frame rate to be auto. Day and night is how basically whether or not it's infrared or what happens at night, whether day or night, whether you want it to be infrared or stay. Watermark is the Reolink watermark in the upper left-hand corner. And then the privacy mask, whether or not it disables certain things. So I'm going to leave all that stuff. We don't need to do that. We can disable audio from here. So by default, it does not record audio, which is for privacy reasons. You just have to come in here and actually tick record audio. Light, this is your infrared. So whether you want them on, always on, or stay off, or auto, excuse me. Detection alarm, how you want to be alarmed to any issues, the sensitivity and all of that stuff. And then down here you get the notifications, how to notify you of any issues with it. And then you also can do linked devices. So if you have multiple cameras, you can inform other cameras that there is motion. So for example, let me go ahead and hit this plus sign here. And oh, it's not going to work because I don't have any other Reolink cameras on this account. But what you actually can do is you can actually link the Reolink cameras together, so that way all of the cameras around this particular camera, or whatever the main camera is, are aware something is happening and are actively watching to see if they can capture it as well. So that's one of the other things that I like about the Reolink. The other thing is that you can natively do time-lapsing. So if you have an SD card in there, you can actually do time lapse or have it record a time lapse. You just select the duration that you want, and it spits out a file that you can use. There are some other advanced stuff in here, like rebooting, restoring the firmware, user management. These are multi-user, so you can create multiple users for each camera. So if you want one specific for, you know, the app, you want one for you know, your spouse or your child, and they can do certain things, but they can't do other things, or you want one specific for your NVR software, you can do multiple users with this. So just keep in mind that you can do that. Email alerts, motion detection, camera recording, all that stuff is capable. If you click on the actual model and camera name, you can get a little bit more of the device info. So there's our device info, the IP address, whether or not there's firmware. A lot of this information you guys aren't going to be able to see, like the UID. I'm going to have that blurred out. But you can see whether or not there is a SD card detected right there. And obviously there's not one. This is the graphic I kind of showed you guys earlier where the SD card is located. It's back here on the back. There's that little thing there. If you go under network information, now I'm going to blur a lot of this out as well, but if you go under network information, you can actually get the IP address of the camera itself. So it actually shows you what IP address to put in to actually access the web interface. Now, let's talk about some of the protocols that this does. I mentioned earlier that it does RMTP and RSTP and all of that stuff, and ONVIF. So by default, all of that is disabled. You actually have to go in and enable it. So to do that, you go into Network Information, Advanced, and it is right here. So all you do is just tick, 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 all of the ones that you want on. So confirm, confirm, and confirm. And you are set. And then ONVIF as well. When you enable TSP, it gives you the option to enable OnVIF. Now this is fully supported for any streaming hardware that you want to use. One thing I will point out, and please make sure that you do your research before enabling any of these features. If you have no intention on using RMTP, turn it off. If you have no intention on using OnVIF, turn it off. Do not disable the HTTP and HTTPS. That will turn off your web interface, and then you'll have to factory reset it and start over. But do not leave things enabled that you do not plan on using. If you don't use RTMP, disable it. If you don't use RTSP, disable it. OnVIF, disable it. But leave your HTTP and your HTTPS on there in case you ever need to make a change and the app isn't working for some reason. Otherwise, you have to factory reset it. So that is an overview of the app itself. The web GUI, the web interface is kind of the same, so I don't really need to go through that or set it up through that. I'd originally planned on setting it up through that, but after this, I don't really think that we need to do that anymore. So with that being said, let's talk about our experience with these cameras. All right, so let's get down to brass tacks. Is this camera worth it? Well, I'm the type of person where I like to cut corners for cost efficiency. And generally, I would go out and buy 10, 20 cameras from Wish, AliExpress, Shein, all those other websites that you can go and get cheap electronics for. Well, you know what? Ever since I discovered the Reolink camera series, I haven't bought any of those. And in fact, I've started replacing a lot of the ones that I've put in. Now, let me go, because there's going to be someone in the comments. No customers or jobs that I've done outside of my own personal products or out of my own personal property has ever been anything other than a Reolink, Hikvision, or camera like that. I've never actually gone out and bought stuff from Wish or AliExpress or Temu or any of that and actually put it on-prem at a customer's location. That's all personal stuff. So before anyone starts getting in the comments and attacking and all that, relax. I've been in IT for 27 years. That's not something you do. You buy a reliable product, you put that out at a customer's location. Basically, if you put it in your house, don't put it at a customer's location. Bring it a couple of steps above that. It's kind of how it is in IT. And someone's going to argue with me on that too. But essentially, these cameras, great value for the money, $50 on Amazon. And like I said, Reolink did send us a few of these, same model, not different models, but a few of these cameras to demo. And that was after I had already fallen in love with them and installed about 100 of these cameras. I reached out and was like, hey, you know, I'm going to be putting together a farmstead or a homestead in South Central Georgia. Do you want to throw some cameras my way? And they were like, yeah, no problem, and sent us a box of cameras. So thank you to Reolink for that. Again, they did not pay us to make this video. We're not getting any compensation from them other than the cameras that they sent us, which at the recording of this video was probably about 6 months ago. So I apologize for the delay in making this video. I'm pretty sure when we got the cameras, we were still in New York. So we hadn't actually made it to Gigabyte Grove yet. Now, as it pertains to using a wireless camera, so like the Argus, which I showed earlier, how does this stack up? Well, they can and can't be compared, and there's an important distinction to make here. So this is a bullet style camera. This is a PTZ camera. They are two completely different things made for two completely different purposes. And while you can use this as a universal camera, that's not really what it's made for. This is made for directional recording. So you need to record something specific. You aim this at it at the appropriate distance. This will capture it, no problem. This is a universal camera where it pans, tilts, and zooms like it's supposed to, and you have 355 degrees of motion that you can use. The other important distinction with this is that this is not hardwired. You cannot take an Ethernet cable and plug it into this. It does not work. This has a battery in it that has an outside power source, so in this case a solar panel, that actually makes this camera operate. So it's very important that people kind of understand the difference between a battery-powered camera and a PoE camera. So we'll talk more about the Argus in a future video. I know I keep showing it on the screen, and you know what? I'm really excited to talk about this, but there are some drawbacks, there are some benefits. But if you want a reliable camera, you want to make sure that you're using a PoE camera. Whether it be Reolink or not, make sure that you're using a PoE or a physically wired camera. PoE is just better. Power over Ethernet is just better because you're sending your power and your data over the same cable. So you only have to run one cable. I'll give you a perfect example. We have a well house that actually sits at the end of our driveway, or at this end of our driveway. And to be able to shoot down the driveway, I had to bury a cable. Well, I don't want to have to bury multiple cables just to get camera to see who's coming down my driveway. So it made it really easy to be able to just run a cable from here, the connection in the workshop, all the way out to the well house, about 100 feet, and bury the cable. And Bob's your uncle. Now I have a camera, aims right down. I have audio, video, everything that I could possibly, motion to tracking, everything that I could need, and it sees all the way down 500 feet, all the way down my driveway. So I can actually see, the mail truck coming up, UPS is on their way up, Andrew's coming in for a visit, my dad's dropping something off, or anything else that might happen. I actually get a pretty good view of that. So I highly recommend getting your hands on one of these. Again, this is the Reolink RLC-510 Alpha 510A. I'm not going to say I don't say the letters. I would rather just say Alpha, because that's, first of all, first responder. I've worked in emergency services for the last 7 years. It's just easier for me to just say Alpha. So it is the 510A or Alpha. Make sure that you get your hands on one of these. Like I said, it's about $50 on Amazon. These are fantastic cameras. I cannot say enough good things about these things. I love them. And actually, if you ever watch our Earthlink camera, that is one of these cameras. That's kind of how good the resolution is on these. I think the EarthCam is the only difference between the native resolution on this and the EarthCam is I think it's downsampled for EarthCam, because EarthCam downsamples it so that it can support the bit rate of the actual video. It's recording at 2K at 60 frames per second, and I think EarthCam bumps it down to 30 frames per second. So just keep that in mind. They are good cameras for $50. So that's going to do it for today's video. If you liked the video, go ahead, comment, share, subscribe, send it to your friends. You got anyone that's interested in home security, let them know about this camera. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about the Argus PTZ camera from Reolink, some of the likes, dislikes, wants, and needs that it has for your home security setup. And make sure that you like our Facebook page, facebook.com/GigabyteGrove. GigabyteGrove.com is our website. Go ahead and check out our merch on there as well. And we will see you guys in the next video.